Tonight on The ReidOut.
All I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
Trump's crooked plan to steal Georgia takes center stage before the January 6th committee, as we're learning more about the equally crooked effort to submit fake electors, which everyone in Trump's inner circle seemed to understand was completely illegal. Also tonight, it's right out in the open now. New evidence of the violence and menace at the heart of today's MAGA-driven Republican Party. But first, I want to show you a bizarro moment from the 2020 news wormhole that you probably don't remember.
The electors are already here. They've been checked in.
They're also electors.
Capitol Hill. All 16 electors that we've been advised by the governor's staff that we're going to be here to vote in the Electoral College have been checked in. They're already here.
But these are the rest of the electors.
It's the official sealed document. The certificate of ascertainment has also the GOP electors. They are here. They're trying to do their constitutional duty.
I understand.
And their constitutional duty requires them to be at the Senate chamber today at 2 p.m.
Now, what you just watched was a group of people claiming to be official electors from the swingy swing state of Michigan on December 14, 2020, demanding to be allowed in to participate in the Electoral College process, despite the fact that Joe Biden won Michigan by more than 150,000 votes. And his electors, the official ones, were already in the room. Michigan was one of 7 states that Biden won where Trump electors showed up anyway that day, insisting that Trump had actually won and that their electoral votes should be counted too, just in case. They even signed legal-looking documents, falsely claiming to be the real electors. As the Washington Post points out, at the time, the gathering seemed like a slapdash, desperate attempt to mimic then-President Donald Trump's refusal to concede. But they report that internal campaign emails and memos reveal that the convening of the fake electors appeared to be a much more concerted strategy. In fact, Trump advisors began strategizing just days after the election about how to construct a legal argument for advancing their own completely illegitimate electors in what a federal judge has described as a coup in search of a legal theory. The Post reports that 2 days after the election, Trump lawyer Cleta Mitchell wrote to John Eastman asking, quote, "What would you think of producing a legal memo outlining the constitutional role of state legislators in designating electors?" By November 28, Eastman had penned a 7-page memo entitled "The Constitutional Authority of State Legislatures to Choose Electors," and a copy was emailed to White House staffers, directing them to pass it along to Trump. Trump's legal team was aware that this was not legally sound, as an aide to Chief of Staff Mark Meadows told the committee. Despite that, the Trump campaign pressed full steam ahead in organizing their electors, telling them not to tell anyone about their plan, keep it hush-hush, which someone who thought their plan was above board would not have to say. On the day of the Electoral College vote, Trump's ultra-loyal Attorney General, William Barr, met with Trump and then promptly resigned, later telling the January 6th committee that he'd told Trump multiple times, including at that December 14 meeting, that his claims about election fraud were BS, but that the president remained undeterred and frankly uninterested in hearing the facts or the truth. 4 days after that December 14 Electoral College vote, in which his fake electors were not seated, Trump met in the Oval Office with his favorite little gang of conspiracy theorists, including Rudy Giuliani and Michael Flynn and Sidney Powell, the Kraken lady, where they threw around various ideas on how to steal the election Trump had lost, including imposing martial law to seize the voting machines. The very next day, Trump tweeted his infamous invite for his MAGA faithful to come to the Capitol on January 6th, the next big date on the electoral calendar, when the vice president officially enters the winning candidates into the record. He tweeted, "Be there. It will be wild." Look, it is very clear at this point that this was a coordinated campaign to help Trump hold on to the presidency at any cost, one that started before the votes were even counted. Here is Trump in September 2020.
Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
I understand that, but people are rioting. Do you commit to making sure that there's a peaceful transferal of power?
We want to get rid of the ballots, and we'll have a very peaceful there won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation.
Get rid of the ballots and we'll have a peaceful transfer. There won't be a transfer of power. And here is how former Attorney General Barr described election night to the January 6th committee as a plan that had been in the works for weeks.
Right out of the box on election night, the president claimed that there was major fraud underway. I mean, this happened, as far as I could tell, before there was actually any potential of looking at evidence. And I didn't think much of that because people had been talking for weeks and everyone understood for weeks that that was going to be what happened on election night.
We're about to learn even more about the role Trump played in these schemes to overturn the election during tomorrow's January 6th hearing, with Congressman Adam Schiff saying that they will show evidence of the president's involvement in pushing for these fake electors, as well as covering his pressure campaign on state officials. We will hear from those officials, including Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and his deputy, as well as Arizona House Speaker Rusty Bowers. We'll also hear from Georgia election worker Shaye Moss, one of the women who faced a barrage of threats after the Trump campaign falsely claimed that she had opened suitcases of fake ballots. Joining me now is Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel and civil rights attorney and former prosecutor Charles Coleman Jr. Thank you both for being here. And Attorney Nessel, I want to start with you because I want to point really quickly to two pieces of reporting. This is from CNN. They had obtained previously audio where Meshawn Maddock, who is the co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party in your state, and who is a fake elector, admits that the Trump campaign requested that they send fake electors. And this is what the quote was. "We fought to seat the electors. The Trump campaign asked us to do that." Another piece of CNN reporting is that a Trump campaign staffer told CNN that Rudy Giuliani had worked closely on the 7-state stunt with these fake electors with Christina Bobb, who's a correspondent for pro-Trump propaganda network One America News. Is it your understanding, just on looking at the facts just in Michigan, that this was a coordinated Trump campaign effort to seat fake electors that went back not to December, but to the actual election?
Well, Joy, first of all, thank you for having me. There's no question that this was a coordinated effort. I mean, it started, quite honestly, the day before the election. I had a conversation with both of our U.S. attorneys. And I said, hey, listen, you guys are going to stay out of this, right? You're not going to, intercede where it's inappropriate for you to do so. And they said, no, of course we're not going to do that. Well, immediately after the election, contrary to what DOJ policy had been, they started to investigate in both the Eastern and the Western districts. Now, our U.S. attorney from the Eastern District, the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, just came out last week and said that he was ordered to look for election fraud, and he reported back that he found no election fraud in the city of Detroit. But nonetheless, you might remember that Trump actually ordered our state House Speaker and our Senate Majority Leader from Michigan to the Oval Office to have a conversation on November 20th, right before the election was certified in Michigan, to try to mount a pressure campaign on them. Now, they did ultimately the legal thing and the right thing, and they refused to cave to his demands. But of course, it was then later, after the election was certified November 23rd in our state, that those individuals, you just showed it on screen, including the co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party and one of our state reps, tried to storm into the state Senate. The reason they did that is because, according to our Constitution, the electors have to officially vote at 2 p.m. that day in the state Senate, or it's not counted. It's not legitimate. But of course, they sent in that fake slate of electors. Nonetheless, even though I can tell you I was in the state Senate that day, and they were outside because Governor Whitmer had ordered, dozens and dozens of MSP, Michigan State Police troopers, to guard the Capitol so they could not force their way into the building, which we were afraid they would try to do when there was the threat of violence that day by one of the state reps. So clearly this was a coordinated campaign. And let me say one other thing. We received information not long thereafter that, of course, this false slate of electors had officially been filed with the National Archivist. So we were placed on notice that this was, fraudulently filed with them. So clearly there was a campaign from the beginning to the end, and it was coordinated by the Trump campaign. All you have to do is look at the public information and open sources to see that that is what occurred.